All right, tonight I'm going to take questions. A couple people who had questions are not here, although Mr. Colburn could probably bring up yours, but let's see what other questions we have this week. We try to keep it towards personal and spiritual development, philosophy, even the theory, Bhagavad theory, things like that. But anything goes, of course. And my answers are just my answers based on my experience. Let's see what's on your mind. Just raise your hand if you have a question. A topic you'd like to hear about. Mr. Cook, what's the first thing comes to your mind? I don't think you've ever asked a question in meditation.
I don't usually come to these, but no, I don't.
Giving you an opportunity. Why meditate? Why waste my time doing nothing? Who thinks that way? A lot of people.
I don't.
Who said that? Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
You think it helps?
It helps. It helps 100%. It gives me back some energy. Gives me some calmness, slows me down, and I try to even teach my kids that they need to shut down and just slow down everything through meditation.
Not easy to do with kids though.
It's very hard with them. It's not that easy.
So if you think about it, we teach breathing and we teach meditation, right? Now, there's a couple ways to look at breathing. Breathing is a way to get energy. You mentioned energy. Breathing is the way we get energy, right? Breathing and eating. So breathing is considered the internal energy. That's the oxygen. The brain will spend the most of that. And then eating, it builds the body, the physical component of energy. And oxygen and nutrients together, the calories, this is how we function, right? This is our fuel that we run on. So breathing is also the bridge between the mind and the body. Breathing can calm the mind, breathing can relax the body. So it's that bridge, right? Then meditation actually saves energy. So you have more for the things you want to do. Who doesn't need more energy usually? Yeah, that's why for kids, breathing, meditation, it's good to teach them breathing because we live in a stressful world for them too. And learning how to control the breath, how we relax the body and control the mind. But to get them to sit still for long, it's not easy. In fact, tomorrow night we'll be doing the Lohan testing. And one of the things we usually do in a Lohan test is have them sit. 5 minutes without moving anything, right? 5 minutes is a good introduction for meditation, but to go deep, you need to stay longer, okay? But it saves energy by what? Calming the mind. Think, right? Thousands of thoughts going on. If you remember the brain waves, it's like the betas are fast. It's like thinking, thoughts. And a good deep meditation, which literally takes time to get into, you see the wave changing to even theta and delta. And delta is like a deep sleep. Now, how do you know if you hit delta? Anybody know? Anybody familiar with that enough to know when they've done it, when they've had it, when they've hit it?
You probably snore.
No, it's got nothing to do with snoring.
Just kidding.
But you're on the right track. It's not the snoring, but the sleeping is a place you probably experienced it. Hopefully you've experienced it. Mr. Coburn, you had your hand up.
I think I've experienced it in meditation. I sense a shift. I feel things slowing down. It's almost like I'm forgetting to breathe. I'm like barely aware of my breath. So I'm not sure if that's delta, but it's definitely a different level.
You can experience that with alpha. You know what alpha is?
I don't know the differences really.
Okay, so there's beta, alpha, theta, delta. There's another one, gamma, that's actually the fastest, but that's actually an internal, whole nother experience. But we'll focus on the four main ones. Beta is the active mind when you're trying to focus on things, when you're busy, when you're working. Think about when you're working, dealing with people, on the computer, that kind of mind. And if it gets too busy, that's hard to focus, right? But it's an active, focused mind, but it also can be overly active, which makes it really difficult and exhausting. Emotions tend to make that happen. If you're emotional, you're going to be in a high beta, stressed and exhausted, okay? And this is the kind of stuff that's happening to all of us because of what's going on in the world, right? It's bringing a lot of stress and emotions and worry. So it's exhausting. It's a natural thing. It's like, what's going to happen, right? So this is important information. You know, it's one of those things where I wish 100 people were here because we really need to hear this. The brainwaves is a really good way to communicate what I want to say. We're supposed to live in alpha. Alpha is a much more aware state. This is supposed to be the natural state. And you think about, if you've ever sat in the woods, for example, and you saw a deer, and the deer was doing his own thing, not distracted by you, okay? Well, let me mute. Okay, I have to call on you then. So the deer, the prey in nature, is in this expanded state of awareness. Why? Survival. That's why, you know, the deer may be eating, and if there's a sound, you see, boom, the deer's going, and it stays still and looks right at you. That's that awareness. They very quickly respond to things. And this is our natural state, to be in tune with our surroundings, our environment. Our eyes are bigger, not like this. See, we're on a computer, we're like this. This narrow view, this narrow sight, this tunnel vision is, you know, on a computer, right? On a computer working, for example. But when you're in alpha, your mind expands. And, you know, people have come to meditation before. You've heard me talk about even riding on a motorcycle. This is how we should drive. But everyone who knows I have a bike, they always want to tell me an accident story. Oh, I knew somebody that was hurt. I knew somebody that was killed. Okay, everybody's got their stories. I know that happens. So what do you think is the best way to ride? Completely aware. In other words, riding is a meditation. And if you drove this way in a car, you would avoid accidents too. Because when you're like this, you don't see things coming from the sides. You're very slow to react. In alpha, you're very fast to react. Beta is too distracted. Beta is focused on something, so other things don't get your attention as quickly. It slows our reaction. How should you be in self-defense? In alpha. You see movement much quicker, which wide-angle vision, seeing, you know, if you put your hands to the sides, how far back can you go until it leaves your view? You start to become aware of how big your vision really is, but you don't use it much unless you train it. And that's why a martial artist should always be training those eyes. So that's why I bring up the motorcycle, because right away I ride and I'm looking at the sides. If I'm going down the highway, I'm looking at the stores on both sides. I'm looking at the cars on both sides. Riding down by the Dojang, you know, South Washington, or any street where there's stores, for example, I'm looking at both sides, not in front of me, because in front of me is automatic. You see it without, you don't have to focus on it. But when you want to read, you have to focus on it. So you read something and then go back. And then you read like a sign and then go back. You know, something's moving, you focus on it. What is that? Okay, we'll go back. Like the deer. Is that danger? okay, we're cool, and go back and eat, right? Check it. So they get focused, and then they go back and eat, and then they go back to wide. And that's actually why prey has the eyes on the side, right? You think about that. Look at a cat. Eyes in front, looking straight. Predator. Very natural. So it's expanded awareness. The moment you shift, so that feeling that you described, Mr. Coburn, of shifting the feeling, that's a move from beta to alpha. Delta is very difficult to reach. You probably passed out drooling. So when I asked, do you think you've experienced Delta? There's a good chance everyone has experienced it, but you've never really thought of it. Anybody want to contribute? More hints now? What might the experience of Delta be? Yes, sir, Mr. Kaufman. You're muting yourself, so I can't control you. Thank you, sir. So I keep you muted, and then if I call on you, I can unmute you, all right? But if you're muting yourself, then I can't control it.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
go ahead, you're on.
I think I experienced it by, it felt like I'm in a tunnel and I'm moving through different colors. Colors around me are shifting and changing. That's at least my experience.
Okay, this is touching on theta, alpha. You get more to theta when that happens. Even high theta, you start to shift, you start to see that. So what's delta? The very fact that you're describing something says it's not delta. Highly unlikely. There's another hint. Yes, Miss Tapshvili. Now I just like saying it. You're muting yourself. Can you unmute? Okay, thank you.
Probably delta is very deep sleep that we're even unaware of.
Okay, so everyone's had the experience where you go to sleep, right? Maybe you pass out because you're so tired, and you wake up like 5 minutes later, and it's 8 hours went by. Yeah, that's a really good quality sleep too. We have to get to delta when we sleep. If we don't get to delta when we sleep, then we're not actually regenerating anything. The brain regenerates, the body regenerates like 96% or more while we're in the deepest sleep. All the healing happens when we're sleeping. So if you don't get to that deep sleep, if you're tossing and turning, oh, here come the latecomers. Okay, if you're tossing and turning and getting up a lot through the night, you never get deep. You're sleeping in maybe theta, alpha. You know, it's not, you're going to get a little delta, but you're not going to get deep, deep, deep. So here's what's supposed to happen when we sleep. That's why I recommend people quality sleep between 10 and 2. This has been known for thousands of years, because when you go to bed, it takes time to get deep. And then in that time, you get to delta, so that past that time, it starts to come back up. So you're rising with the sun. So the sun, when it's light out, you're awake. So we should be waking 5 or 6 o'clock, ideally, right? Ideally. Very few people do, I know. But I'm just saying what the ideal time is. To work with nature, which goes back to the Bakwa principles, is the Taoist concepts of closer to nature. Before we had all this unnatural light, we slept when it was dark, and we woke up when it got light. Pretty natural, pretty normal that way. So a deep sleep or a deep meditation. Not a lot of people will experience that. This takes work. And by work, I mean consistent effort over time, right? The concept of the Kung Fu, meaning spending enough time regularly to where meditation, let me reword that, to where you're not concerned with the time. You lose track of the time. The mind goes blank. it feels like you slept, but you never slept. So if you really get to delta, you actually, an hour could feel like 5 minutes. Isn't it usually the other way around? 5 minutes feels like an hour when you're meditating. It's like, oh, how long are we going to sit here? Because you're busy. When you're busy, time goes slow. When you're quiet, time goes fast. Now, you've experienced similar things, like if you're creative, like art or something, right? When you're creative and you get really involved in something, then you can lose track of time. You could even say like somebody puts themselves in a dangerous situation, like a rock climber. The focus could get so deep that you could be doing this for, your life is on the line, and an hour could go by trying to deal with this when it seems so fast. It didn't seem like a long time. That's when your mind is so in the zone. So in the zone touches upon it, you're going to have more delta waves. It's not just delta. It's never just one, by the way. You always have all four going. But which one is the most? Okay? So you have to have a lot of delta to get to the deep sleep of the most healing, right? Meditation, pretty much delta is unconscious, but it is possible to get to delta in meditation. More experienced meditator, again, putting in the time, putting in the effort, and developing the ability to get to that point where you're blank, but you're aware. But there's no thought. The moment a thought enters, you're not delta. The thought is instantly activity. There's no activity. I like to think of it like a stump in the woods. You're sitting in nature, and you're a stump in the woods. No thought. You're just there. Just be. It's very, very difficult because our mind wants to think. So if you can get there, complete awareness, it's possible that you've got more delta. And there are spiritual experiences that go along with it. And that's why I mentioned gamma. Gamma is like you can experience a whole nother world. I've just touched upon it over the years. It's where it's as real as this existence. You could be on the other side, so to speak, and it's like pinching yourself, stomping the ground, sort of like a lucid dream, but it's even more than that. It's like really experiencing the other world. And some have measured this as a gamma, meaning a lot of activity going on, but it's beyond the physical, beyond the scope of this course. But high-level Bakwa is supposed to develop that, because when you practice a lot of meditation and then you do breathing that works the dantian, and you start to open up the pathway of the spine, in India they call Kundalini. Anyone ever heard of Kundalini? Okay. Qigong, they talk like the fire path. This is actually stimulating the pituitary, the pineal gland, I should say, the pineal gland in the middle of the brain. And there's all special training in yoga that teaches that stuff. Now, Bakwa can have that effect by long walking the circle with the right breath and the right mind. And let's just say it sort of loosens it up. So then in meditation, you might have the experience. Yeah, I've had some weird experiences with that. One of the experiences I've shared, did anybody not see The Matrix? Everybody saw The Matrix? That first one was a great one, okay? So there's a point in The Matrix that Neo, the main character, sees the fabric of the Matrix. And it's like a computer coding, right? You see that, that's the whole, the marketing, right? It's like all the green coding, right? So obviously it's not like that, but it's sort of like that. So whoever created that movie knows the experience, is my guess, or someone explained it to him. Because that's what happens. The physical breaks up and you see the fabric. Almost like if you zoom in on a picture and you see the pixels. You zoom enough into a picture, you'll see the makeup of that picture. That is something that can be experienced. in the physical. You start to realize that nothing's physical. I'll leave it at that. But that mind, more towards alpha, theta, delta, more meditation. When Mr. Thomas mentions he has more energy, yeah, because it's like a recharge. It's like plugging in your phone, you know, you keep using your phone, it runs out of gas, it runs out of energy, right? The battery runs low. Our batteries run low too if we keep using them, keep using our brain, for example. It's exhausting. So then you unplug and the body can regenerate. And then that's why even a 10-minute nap, I can take a 10-minute nap and it's like, you know, recharge, full recharge. You know, it's like, bam, you're alert for a while. The European siesta, right? The afternoon nap, this is extremely wise because people would be so much more productive if they could have lunch and then take a nap. Because after that nap, you're going to be able to do much more. You're going to be sharp, you're going to have energy, you're going to feel positive, you know, more optimistic, and you're going to be able to get more done instead of what usually happens. You know, you eat in the afternoon is just like watching the clock. Can't wait to get out of here. That's why most people are most productive early in the morning because you just got up from sleep. That's the recharge, right? Sleep is a recharge. Meditation is a recharge. Well, meditation trains the mind to not be so busy, so you spend less. But there's no question, deeper relaxation, more oxygenation, this is breathing, right? Gaining energy. More breathing doesn't make more energy. Anybody know why that is? If breathing makes energy, wouldn't more breathing make more energy? What happens when you hyperventilate? You get dizzy and fall down. Why? Because you're losing oxygen. That's a whole nother aspect, right? Breathing has yin and yang, the inhale and the exhale. They have to be in balance. If you lose too much of the relaxing side, which is the carbon dioxide, believe it or not, that doesn't just, it's not just cleaning, it's also the relaxation. Oxygen activates. So too much breathing, you're going to activate too much and you're going to create tension, which blocks your ability to absorb oxygen. So what happens to breathing when you're meditating? Breathing becomes thin and long and deep, but not big. In other words, it gets into the body, but it's minimal movement, minimal, you know, like when people breathe, they feel like this. It looks like you're dead. A deep meditation, you're so still, it looks like you're not breathing. So one part is because you're not busy, you're not spending energy, you don't need more breath. Because if you go run or train hard, you're going to breathe more. This is true. But you'll recharge faster if you can relax. That's why learning to breathe from here, even when you're I don't want to say exhaust yourself, when you exert yourself, you still try to breathe through your nose as quickly as you can, rather than an open mouth. Because you throw off this yin-yang balance, you spend more energy and you create more tension, which means you gasp for more air. What happens to a person with asthma? The moment they feel like they can't breathe, they try harder to breathe, which makes them less able to breathe. Yeah, I've taught children, even in our classes over the years, who had asthma, had an inhaler. And, you know, maybe Mr. Thomas, you appreciate this. Oh, there he is. So this is why I know this is true, what I'm telling you, because I will get them, and this is good to learn, how to relax, okay? Instead of focusing on the inhale when you want to oxygenate more, someone who starts to go into a panic actually needs to focus more on the exhale. So you slow exhale and then hold. 2, 3 seconds, and then breathe in through the nose. You slow down the inhale to get it under balance, get it rebalanced. And then you relax and start to absorb the oxygen. And every time I had a child who was asking for their inhaler, every time they didn't need their inhaler. We even had it happen to a child during a test. He started to look like his lips were turning blue. And I just reminded him about breathing like that. And within a few moments, his mother was right there in the audience, you know. I mean, emergency, you can go to the inhaler, they have it, but they didn't need it. Isn't that nice? You think about all the people with lung problems, especially today, right? It's one of the risk factors. They can end that just by breathing properly, getting this right and getting the breathing right. Okay, enough on that. Yes, sir, Mr. Thomas. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what you were saying, in the hospital, a lot of these COVID patients that are on respirators, what they're finding is if you move them, the whole concept of movement and increasing blood flow, a lot of them are coming off the respirators by laying them prone, not just letting them stay on their backs. They put them on their left side, right side, and then prone. And they found that the oxygen goes up right away. You know, so that goes along with the whole movement, helps with healing and everything. So yeah.
I'm sure you've seen bed sores, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, a doctor would see bed sores, right? Somebody sitting still for so long, you're completely blocking the blood flow to that area that's compressed by the bed, for example, right? So that's consistent with what you just said. You get the person off of their back onto their side, all the blood's going to flow back there. Turn to the other side, the blood's going to flow. So you're blocking one area to allow it to flow to another area. So you're saying you're moving them, right?
Yeah, we have proning teams that just come and they move the patient around.
That makes perfect sense. And that's an example of applying Bhagavad principle
Yeah.
to a person who can't even move themselves. Beautiful. I like that. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right, another question. All right, so Mr. Colbrin, you had asked me about the flower meditation and the happiness meditation, right? So I'm going to answer that now. Anybody not familiar with the flower meditation? Okay. So first we do what's called a pre-meditation, right? Bhagavad Chang uses a lot of visualization, even for martial purposes. Anyone heard of the law of attraction? The real secret to the law of attraction is related to the flower and happiness meditations. And that's again, trying to get closer to nature or the Tao. It's this acceptance of what is and an inner smile. So the ideal law of attraction is you say what you want, you put your goals out there, put it into the universe, and it's supposed to come to you, okay? But then people keep, why isn't it coming to me? And they're always living in this lack. And if you actually look at the concept behind it, you're supposed to let it go, meaning trusting the universe, so to speak, right? Okay, whether or not you believe in or think about that law of attraction, this is the hardest part, because we stress ourselves out with what we're getting or not getting. The flower meditation is to develop this inner peace and inner smile. You think about, what's your favorite flower? When you see a beautiful flower, does anybody get angry? Not usually. Not usually. It softens the heart, right? It makes you feel a little better right away. So you imagine your favorite flower, your favorite color. And what you're going to do is, I'm going to grow this flower myself. So you sit in meditation and you put yourself in a It's like beautiful green rolling hills with a perfectly blue sky and some fluffy white clouds. That's the scene. You dig a little hole, and then you put the seed for your favorite flower in the hole. And you take the dirt. This is a visualization. This is what you're doing, okay? You're imagining going through this process. Then you water it, and you sit, and you notice the sun on your face, which is also going to be, bringing light to the area there to grow this eventually, right? So you're aware of that, and a little breeze maybe on your cheek. It's a perfect day. And then another day, you're like, what's that with photography, time-lapse photography kind of going on, but it's slow, but you're not taking, the normal time. You're going through this process, and you see the little sprout. And you're watering it, and you're waiting, and again, you're enjoying feeling the fresh air on your cheek, and the sun shining, and the perfect temperature. Everything's beautiful, and you're just enjoying. And there's a little sprout, and then you water it again. And you're going through this process, and you see it growing to a little stalk, and it starts to have the bud, and eventually the bud opens, and then there's a perfect flower, beautiful flower, perfect color, exactly, your favorite color, and it brings that joy to your heart. And this visualization should take, actually I should use the word envisioning, not visualize, envision. So let's say visualizing is like watching a movie. Envisioning is being in the movie. You're in it, you're doing it, okay? So you're putting yourself in that reality while you're going through this process. 15 minutes minimum, 20 minutes, could be 30 minutes, okay? Depends how slow you can go through the process. But as you get better at it, the time, like I said earlier, just goes. No rush. Takes time, patience as you're working this to grow the flower. Perfect flower, perfect day, everything's beautiful. Now just let it all dissolve. And if you can, you sit and just stay there for a while and enjoy the feeling. So empty mind if you can. Just stay with the meditation. Go from the visualization to a meditation. And just stay however long you want. Some people stay, an hour or more. Some people 5 more minutes. Really depends on what's comfortable. Because meditation shouldn't be stressful. It shouldn't be forcing it. It shouldn't create tension. You should stay because you just feel so good. What not to do. Don't watch the flower die. Does that sound familiar now, Mr. Colburn? Okay, so you remember that. So that's the flower meditation. Now what's the happiness meditation? This time you're at the shore. All right, and this is literally just 2 options. You don't have to, this one's more advanced than this one. No, it's just 2 visualizations. Which one speaks to you more? So you're at the shore. And at the shore, you can look out on the ocean and see the horizon, right? And I know personally it's one of my favorite places in the world is to be at the shore and looking out on the ocean. So someone you love, and it could be past or present, it could be someone who's passed on, right? Favorite person, someone you love, and they're coming to visit, and you see on the horizon a little speck because they're on a boat with a sail, and they're coming. And as something gets closer, it gradually gets bigger, right? So this process is looking and you just see them, and then you just enjoy the day. Again, perfect day, perfect breeze, perfect temperature, everything. And you're just feeling the excitement in your heart of they're coming to see you. And over the time of your visualization, it's getting a little bigger, a little bigger, a little bigger, a little bigger. They're getting closer. Eventually, you can actually see the sail rather than just a dot. You see the sail, you see the boat, and then eventually you get a little closer, 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 and then you actually see the person, and the person's waving to you. And you feel you know, you just, oh, I can't wait to see them. And you're just feeling all this happiness inside. And then eventually the boat gets to the shore and, you know, they're waving, they're excited to see you as well. And they get close enough, you start to see that they have a gift for you. And they walk on the beach to you and you're walking towards them and they're giving you something and you just enjoy the moment of seeing who you love. That's it. Completely engage in the meditation, envision the whole scene, the experience, and just feel happy. Which is ultimately what the flower did as well, right? It brought joy to your heart. And that good feeling, well, it's a lot better than all the things we're worrying about, right? It's that good feeling. What is that feeling? You practice more. See, we practice worry and fear and guilt and all grief. We practice all these negative worry, all these things. Practice happiness. And make that feeling the habit. Because whatever you do a lot of becomes a habit, becomes a reflex. So it's like being on your horse, right? The horse of happiness, and you get knocked off the horse. You don't stay on the ground and curse and scream. You just get back on the horse. That's the perseverance in life. Keep going. Get back on the horse. Feel good. Go forward, right? So those meditations are to create that feeling, that sensation. And as far as testing, Mr. Copeland, you know, my test is the time that you can stay still. But that's what you could be doing. You see? You go through the visualization and into the meditation as you're mastering your mind. All right. Let's go there now. We can practice that as well. All right, so I'll start you. We'll close it up. You continue and maybe try one of those. Choose the flower or the happiness meditation. So sit comfortably. Align yourself as if to hold up the sky. And settle. Relax. While maintaining the alignment. Decide on a focal point. You may gaze to the point between the eyebrows while watching the breath, or any focal point of your choosing, as with the visualization we just talked about. If the mind wanders, come back to your focal point. Wanders again, simply bring it back. Keep a passive attitude. No judgment about how you're doing. Simply practice. You have no place to go. No one calling for you. No one to answer to. And all there is here and now.